If stories are soul food, and they are, this world of starving souls needs many, many more true and good and beautiful stories. For those stories to exist, the world first needs more storytellers. Storytellers with every aspect of their craft firmly rooted in the only possible source of truth, goodness, and beauty. Storytellers who are more interested in imitating and honoring the one true storyteller than they are interested in this world's acclaim. The Camperdown Writers Kiln at New St. Andrews College. Limited enrollment, low residency, Christ-centered. Currently seeking men and women to help us feed the world. Apply now.
The American church really is gay.
Are you asking me out on a date?
Effeminate.
The Bible appears more to whisper when it comes to sexual sin.
Shallow.
I said, I want the African American 7.
And full of cowardly leaders.
Are we going to keep bickering over secondary issues?
America desperately needs to return to the Father. Either we fall on the rock and are broken, or we fall on the ground and are crushed under that rock. To fall on top of the rock and be broken is exactly the condition in which God brings reformation and revival. So which way is it, Prodigal America? Are you coming home to the Father? Join us this Reformation Day in Fort Worth, Texas, October 31st through November 2nd at Will Rogers Event Center, just days before our presidential election. And join with the thousands of us for the blessing of gathering together with God's people and celebrating God's goodness with beer and psalms. Hear from speakers such as Dr. James White, Pastor Toby Sumter, Pastor Doug Wilson, Dr. George Grant, Gabe Knox, Steve Dace, and more. Don't forget our Business Makers Conference, Jumpy Castles for the kiddos, after parties, single events, the Pastor's Luncheon, the Business Leaders Luncheon, and many more surprises coming. America has squandered her inheritance far too long. It's time she repents and returns home to her Father. Fight, Laugh, Feast presents Prodigal America.
Thank you for joining us on Sunday nights. It's good to be with you, Pastor Toby, Chuck Knox, and Gabe.
Gabe.
We talked offline about that.
The water boy.
The water boy. Hey, we got actually really two cool interviews coming at you. We got Hunting the Caliphate and Dr. Gordon Wilson on different shades of green. So you're going to enjoy the show.
You're going to buy books. We're going to get you to buy books.
Yes. And
that's what you're going to do.
All our club members get automatically thrown in for a drawing for this book.
Hunting the Caliphate?
Nice. Yeah, pretty exciting.
You know, it might be Monday for some people. I'm just saying. You said Sunday, but it might be Monday.
That's true.
Or Tuesday.
Well, not if you're watching the live stream.
Yeah, but I'm saying we dropped this live on Sunday night. That's all. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Hey, make sure you guys join the club. Secular media outlets for far too long have dominated the airwaves.
Wait, what'd you say?
Secular media outlets.
Oh,
secular.
That was really fast. It was in your Texas accent, and I didn't understand it.
Secular media outlets far too long. And so as you guys join the club, you actually support us and help us be able to get to the point where we can actually compete with those outlets. So please join the club. And right now, for a limited time, we still have a couple pint glasses to ship out at the end of every month.
Wait. I want to go back to the book giveaway thing. You just ran over that like so fast. Okay. So like, think about this. We're gonna try to be doing. We really had fun doing that book giveaway a couple weeks ago. That was really. It was. What was the book that we gave away?
Why'd you do that?
Worship, church reform.
Oh,
why'd you do that?
Pastor Bailey, we love you. We gave that away, and it was the fun. Like you put it in the little thing, and it went around, you know, and
it entertained us.
Oh, it was fun. I mean, I think everybody enjoyed that. I mean, I think it's everybody's favorite part of the show.
And so now we're going to take all our club members. Last time we said, hey, if you email us, club members, you have to email us.
For the first one, we're like, you have to email us, but you know, you guys already give so much.
Yep.
So if you are already a member, you need to do nothing. You're automatically added to the pool. Yep. And your name is in the drawing.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And so next week, we will do a drawing for Hunting the Caliphate.
Yes.
Now, if you're not a member yet,
you get to watch somebody else get blessed.
Or you can join now.
That's
and
right.
get your name on the list.
And if you join now and you join by the time we record the show, which is usually Friday mornings, you can get your name in the tick, 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 tick thing.
That's right.
Is that all the members in that little loop thing?
It will be.
It will be.
Okay.
Next time it will be.
Yeah.
That's a lot of names.
It's going to be a lot more than it was last time because we made them work for it last time. We made an email. But anyways, we want to give books away more.
Yep.
Praise God.
Also, this show is brought to you by Ely Construction, and Ely Construction has a job opportunity in Moscow, Idaho.
Come on now.
If you have 10 years of full-time residential construction experience or more, you love remodeling. Like you wake up in the night and you're like, I could just move it around.
And there's some cool houses in Moscow.
And you would consider moving to our town, which is in
We'll skip that part.
Construction has a lead carpenter position for you to consider. Go to elyconstruction.com/lead for details. This is a position for people who are driven to pursue excellence, love learning, are passionate about caring for clients. And if you're not any of those things,
don't apply.
Don't apply, please. And also, if you don't know how to build a house from the ground up,
don't apply.
Off a set of prints, this is not a position for you. Apparently, there's been a bunch of people applying who don't know how to build house. No, I'm kidding. I'm just if you're not looking for a long-term career, if you're just looking to come visit us for a Friday morning to watch a show, don't apply. Sorry. You know, it's not, I mean,
we get a tour of NSA.
We appreciate that, but Mr. Ely is looking for somebody who wants to work here long-term. If you're a master craftsman, you want to live in Moscow, you're humble, hungry, people smart, you want to innovate with excellence in remodeling, apply today. Go to elyconstruction.com/lead.
I want to mention one more thing. We're going to be at ReformCon next weekend. So this is our last week to sign up for ReformCon in Arizona. So October 24th through the 26th. Make sure you guys see you there, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, so Hunting the Caliphate, the reason why I'm excited.
This is a great interview.
It's a really good interview. It's this book is written by General Dana Pittard and Special Ops Bryant. So you get kind of the ground level view of what happened in the Iraqi war between 2014 and 2017 from the special ops side. And then you get kind of the politics and the air level view from General Pittard.
I mean, did you guys know? Did you know how much we were doing in Afghanistan and Iraq during 2014 to 20?
No,
there was something going on then.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, seriously,
I was really blown away by how much was going on, the change of administrations, how that affected the ops and the various. I mean, it's pretty significant, and I think this is. I mean, if you want to be informed about what's going on over there, and what I mean, we've talked to. Remember our conversation with Chad Robichaux and who was it? Jeremy Longnecker or something like that?
Stallnecker.
Sorry, Jeremy. But just thinking about loving your neighbors, knowing what the soldiers have been doing, going through. I mean, it all fits together.
And the politics of what had been going on. So, we're going to drop you into this interview. Right? We're dropping them into it. And make sure you guys. I mean, seriously, the book was written well. It's written by soldiers, so it's a little rough here and there. Yeah. But this
is not a book that you want to give to your 6-year-old or like
it's a grown man book.
Reading out loud around the dinner table. It's not that kind of book. They talk like soldiers.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It made me want to figure out what was going on.
It's not over the top. It's not grotesque.
Yeah,
but it's a little rough in places. Yeah. But it really is enlightening, helping us understand what was going on.
Yep. So enjoy the interview.
We have Dana Pittard, retired from the U.S. Army in 2015, rank Major General after 34 years of active duty service. He was a highly decorated combat leader, commanded units at every echelon from platoon to division, including multiple combat tours in Iraq and the Middle East. In 2014, he was picked to lead the initial U.S. response to halt the aggressive spread of ISIS in Iraq. He's a West Point grad, Harvard fellow, vice president of a manufacturing company in Indiana, where he lives with his wife, Lucille, and their 2 sons. And we have Wes Bryant, former Special Operations Forces Tactical Air Control Party Joint Terminal Attack Controller. There's some really cool acronyms.
He's a deadly dude.
But
that's what
just
that means.
Basically, watch out. A member of the elite ground combat forces of the U.S. Air Force in 2014, he was the senior enlisted JTAC to establish the Baghdad Strike Cell, coordinating, controlling some of the first airstrikes of America's war on ISIS. He continued as the senior air power expert for special ops task forces, hunting ISIS throughout Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan until his retirement in early 2018. Wes holds a bachelor's in Asian studies and currently pursues writing, editing, and consulting while teaching traditional Kung Fu. He lives with his wife, Katie, and their 2 daughters in North Carolina. And we are having them on because they have just written this book jointly, Hunting the Caliphate, America's War on ISIS and the Dawn of the Strike Cell. Dana and Wes, thanks so much for joining us on Cross Politic.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
So when I read your book, I was like, man, I know nothing about the war that happened between 2014, 2017.
Right.
Why is that the case? Why don't just kind of the general America doesn't know much about what went on
Obama
between this time?
Sorry. That wasn't to me.
I think part of it has to do with back in 2014, ISIS was in the news for taking over a third of the territory of Iraq, the beheading of both American and Western hostages, publicly doing that, putting that out on YouTube.
Right.
So this is definitely the talk in 2014. But over time, obviously, we were able to defeat the Caliphate, and that's the state that ISIS declared. Again, a third of the territory of Iraq and portions of Syria. So that's probably one reason why people aren't really talking about ISIS right now. But ISIS as a terrorist organization is still alive and well and still needs to be beaten.
Right. So Dana, this question's for you because it seems like you have being a commander, you're kind of involved on the politics side of things, but also involved on the ground level side of things.
You mean a general?
General?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Major General.
Sorry, Major General. I'm sorry. Please don't kill me. And but it seems like there was the Obama administration and their policy with Iraq kind of left a vacuum for ISIS to come in 2014 and be able to take over a third of Iraq. Is that correct?
Well, that's some of the truth of that. In fact, when U.S. troops were removed from Iraq in 2011, people were cheering over here in America, but unfortunately, that allowed the Shia-led government of Iraq, and Shia is a form of Islam that's aligned with Iran, allowed them to really have policies that persecuted in many ways Sunni Muslims. So it's with the provinces that had Sunni Muslims in it, ISIS was allowed to kind of germinate. Also, obviously, from Syria. So there was a slight vacuum there. In fact, in the book, part of the problem with when ISIS took over the second largest city in Iraq, which is over 1 million people, the city of Mosul, the Obama administration was a little reluctant at that point to do anything because President Obama was elected way back in 2008 to end war, so they weren't really high on fighting ISIS initially until ISIS just became such an obvious existential threat.
A number of times. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, I'd say from Wes, my take on that too is, sometimes we hear almost as if it was either an intention or how could you not see that having come to fruition by pulling everybody out. But we do tend to forget that, we wanted the majority of really America, the voices were saying, hey, let's get out of the Iraq war. We're done here. And it really, ISIS was an inadvertent consequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. It's something that, we just celebrated 9/11, remember, 18.
Celebrated.
Well, remembered,
right.
Not celebrated, but I mean, we remember.
Celebrate the heroes.
We celebrate the heroes. That's what I mean. And so, it really goes back to there. But of course, before that, you had the Kuwait thing, the Iraq thing,
Desert Storm,
all that stuff. So, I mean, we've been in the Middle East now for a long time. And, you read this, you read just the challenges you guys outline. I mean, there's the politics, there's the culture, there's the religious side of things, and then all the military. I mean, it's complex and complicated. And I think that your book really kind of pictures that well. And so you go back and you think, so should we have even ever been there? I mean, was it worth it?
That is a complex question. One is back in 2003, the invasion of Iraq. I was was with my brigade in the Balkans at the time doing peacekeeping operations when that occurred, before then moving from there and then deploying to Iraq. I, at that point, didn't understand why we attacked Iraq in 2003. We all understood Afghanistan,
right,
because of Al Qaeda and everything else, attacks on our country. But Iraq was a little bit more complex because Iraq, the government was a Sunni-led government. It was Saddam Hussein, which was a bulwark, a hedge against Iran. They were enemies, and once we took down Saddam Hussein's government, then the Shia majority of Iraq took over, and now Iraq is much more aligned with Iran than they've ever been. But to say, was it worth it? Both Wes and myself, so many of our colleagues and friends who died in the conflict. So a lot of American blood and treasure has been spent. That's why the threat in 2014, we talked about it in the book, was important to stop ISIS, because ISIS had invaded this young democracy,
right,
this sovereign nation of Iraq that we helped to create. So if there was a just war, it was a war against ISIS in 2014. Taking away that off the table the invasion back in 2003. But once 2014 came around and ISIS attacked the sovereign democracy of Iraq, we need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Wes, it seems like we are in a situation. I don't know how to pull out. It's so complicated over there. And anytime we make a move to do something for good, it leaves a vacuum or an opportunity for something if we start pulling out, then all of a sudden we left a vacuum where we made progress. How do we eventually pull? How do we pull out of this?
It is there, and I think I hit on that in the book, and that there becomes a bit of a whack-a-mole operation.
Right. I remember that. I remember that
in the Middle East. And so I think really this concept that started with the campaign against ISIS, where we said, initiating from the Obama administration, one of the things they did really well to me, and I know Dana agrees, is, hey, we need to get a coalition that is primarily an Arab-led coalition and make it to where these countries can stand on their own now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way forward. But for us to pull out, it's going to be a long time before they're ready. I think that's very clear in situations like Afghanistan and Syria. But if we look at Iraq and the state of the government and military now, even just 4 years later from 2014, when ISIS almost took Baghdad, it's night and day. And of the partner nations that we work with, Iraq is by far the strongest and most capable, and they're keeping ISIS at bay very well themselves now. So that shows that there's hope. Now we have a lot more work to do. Was that good?
No, go ahead, Wes. I want you to finish that.
Yeah, we have a lot more work to do, both there and especially in other places like Afghanistan, and of course Syria is just a giant mess for reasons even beyond any of our control.
Right.
So just a long way to go, and there's no quick answer at all.
Is our work there though breaking things worse? One of the things, I had a friend who was over, a few of them actually, who were fighting over there, and one of the things that they came back saying is, in America, we think that we should be spreading our American democracy all across the world, but these people don't want that, and we keep on trying to shove it down their throat one way or another. After all that you guys have experienced, do you kind of feel the same way? It's like we keep trying to fix it, we only keep breaking it. Like you said, your whack-a-mole situation, can we even fix it? Or do we need to just say, okay, hey guys, sorry, and bye?
Well, Chuck, I think we need to take a look at the outcome. I think at one time you heard the Bush administration say, hey, we want to democratize the area. That goal has definitely changed.
Okay.
Now it's about helping a government stand up on their own feet, and whatever form they have. But as long as, at least if we're going to spend this blood and treasure, that they're somehow aligned with us in a way, but that the people have security. But it's also educating the American people on what peace looks like. I mean, look at Korea. The Korean War really ended 66 years ago, but we are still there with a footprint.
Yeah.
World War II ended 75 years ago, nearly 75 years ago. We're still in Germany. So what does that look like as far as continued engagement? We got to take a look at that.
Yeah. I was thinking too, I mean, I think there was one place in, I can't remember which one of you gentlemen were writing this section, but, the policy was you were seeing, there was real threats, but the current policy, the orders from on high were basically just befriend the nationals, befriend them, encourage them, and I was thinking, armies are not really meant to be friends. Like it's like armies are. I mean, they're really good at fighting bad guys, and that's what
we want,
and that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
But so I wonder, like, have there been efforts, and do you guys see need for more non-military efforts in these countries where, like, education, missionaries, people bringing in, sort of more
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, businessmen. Yeah. Is that part of the solution to this as well, rather than trying to have soldiers do everything, while recognizing that they have a really important role to play?
Well, sure, it's a comprehensive approach. It's a diplomatic approach. It's economic. It's military. It's informational. It's in some ways cultural.
Yeah.
But it is a comprehensive approach. If it's just the military, as Wes just said, then you're just playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
We talk about that also in the book as far as the comprehensive approach.
And I think
go ahead, Wes.
I think you may be alluding to definitely a part where I discussed Afghanistan over the years back and forth, where there's a significant portion where a big focus from the higher military down was, I think I put in there, winning the hearts and minds.
Yes.
Where we had a lot of constraints and it wasn't as much war fighting. And it would ebb and flow. Suddenly it's like, hey, let's go out and we're going to do all these offensives. And then the next day it's nobody's going out on raids and it's heart and mind stuff. And it just ebbed and flowed with the political really flavor of the day back in Washington.
That's exactly what exactly what I was thinking of. And I was just thinking, like, man, that's hard.
So this question is to both of you guys. I'll start with you, Dana, since I called you Commander earlier. What did you guys, when you guys wrote this book, what did you want to accomplish through writing this book? And then what has been some of the feedback that surprised you now that the book's been out?
Well, I think, first and foremost, is to tell a story. And it was a story that wasn't known by very many people outside of really a small group. And it's this idea of a huge task to be done and trying to figure out what to do with a small number of groups. I mean, when Mosul was taken over, the second largest city in Iraq, in June of 2014, within 10 days, we had 300 special operators and 100 extra folks as far as staff and myself to figure out what to do. Except whether we needed to evacuate the embassy. If you remember, just 2 years before that was when Ambassador Stevens in Libya had been killed.
Yep.
So there's a lot of concern about that. And so it's first and foremost a story. In fact, it's a very compelling story. And that's been a surprise since we've written the book, is just the outpouring of kind of excitement and support for the book and the story itself. Because the two different perspectives, mine and Wes's, we go back and forth almost like a Tom Clancy novel, except it's true, it's nonfiction.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I absolutely care about that. I have been blown away at the response, frankly. I'm really humbled by it. I just gave not just people reaching out over social media that I don't know, on top of course, friends and colleagues.
Sure.
But I just gave a presentation in my local area to a really pretty educated group, otherwise educated group that told me, wow, we don't know. I gave a long presentation, about 30 minutes, about the entire book, even had a slideshow and some strike footage.
Yeah.
And, they came up and said, I just can't believe how much we don't know about what's going on and what's gone on.
Yeah.
And they asked, why is that? And, I can't answer that question. I think it'll really only, I don't think there's a mass conspiracy to hide anything, but I think it's a matter of our attention span for media, both left and right.
Yeah.
So that was part of our. It's so great to hear because that was such a big motivation for the book. Was let's educate not only the public, but in my mind, it was politicians too.
Sure.
On how we really waged these wars, what happened against ISIS, and what's still happening. For me, as a JTAC, how we wage our airstrike campaigns and what goes into every single airstrike. Because I've even heard some of our politicians speak very irresponsibly about our airstrike campaigns in the Middle East. And to have people come and say, "Wow, I didn't know all of that goes into one strike."
Yeah,
that's a great thing. It's really powerful.
Wow, that was great.
Yep.
I told you
there's more to that interview that they got to catch.
And there's more. And there's more. So like all our interviews, you can find them at crosspolitic.com. And I hope you'll go check it out. Check out the book.
Yeah.
Just a note on the book, they're soldiers and they talk like soldiers sometimes.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. It's probably not something to give to your 6-year-old boy.
Yeah. Right. You might want to filter it.
But it's pretty gripping. It really is told well.
It really is. It's well told. Yeah. And we really appreciated their time. Next up, we have Dr. Gordon Wilson, author of A Different Shade of Green. It's kind of goes. You got like the army green and environmental green. Right?
That's how you tie it in with the colors.
That's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah.
Hope you enjoy. Dr. Gordon Wilson.
It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. Gordon Wilson is
how long?
At least a year or two.
Has it been?
Year and a half?
It's been more than a year.
Yeah.
He did his dissertation on turtles. Did you guys know that?
See, you might want to eat the mic so you can correct this dude.
Yeah. No, that's technically correct.
Just like everything Gabe says, technically.
It's a little bit narrower than that.
I don't know if it's technically correct. It's sort of generically correct.
Yeah.
He's
generic.
Senior Fellow of Natural History, which in layman's terms is science, right?
Well, biology.
Biology
I
in
would
particular.
say, yeah.
At New St. Andrews College in Moscow, Idaho. Hey, that's where we live.
And they have a Student Perspective Weekend, October 24th through the 26th.
Oh, look at that. You just feathered that right
He's working it in.
Dr. Wilson has also taught a wide array of biology courses at Liberty University.
Yes.
He received his PhD in environmental science and public policy from George Mason University in 2003. And your dissertation was in...
The reproductive ecology of the eastern box turtles. So yes,
turtles.
David, it was turtles.
Gordon is the author of the biology textbook, The Riot and the Dance. If you've not seen The Riot and the Dance, what's wrong with you people?
My kids have seen it a couple times, and the last time they saw it was their favorite. It gets better every time.
It's better. Okay, yeah. So check out The Riot and the Dance. Is it on, is it streaming?
Amazon?
Yeah, it's streaming.
Amazon Prime?
Amazon Prime, at least. I don't know if it goes off. I don't know when it goes off Amazon Prime, but it was on it. May still be on Amazon Prime.
And you can also...
iTunes, I think, and Google Play. I think also Hulu now.
You could buy DVD or
from Canon Press.
Blu-ray from Canon.
Okay. It was featured in, and it's a textbook and a movie. So just to be clear, it's a textbook and a movie.
Same name, but the textbook obviously is curricular.
Yes.
The movie is just entertainment.
Right. It's the same to me. It's like turtles. It's just.
Dr. Wilson is also a regular contributor to Answers magazine. Gordon and his wife Meredith have 4 children and a growing number of grandchildren.
Currently 8.
8. And he is the author of this brand new book, A Different Shade of Green, a biblical approach to environmentalism and the Dominion mandates. Also got a forward by Mr. Indy Wilson, your nephew.
Yeah.
So why did you write this book?
Well, the reason I wrote the book was because I saw that Christians in particular would either have a knee-jerk reaction against anything environmental, simply because there's a strong association with the liberal or left agenda,
right?
And so, I don't want to even be remotely associated with a lot of that extreme.
I'm not a tree hugger.
Yeah. But then there was, and so there's a reaction against that. Then there's the other side, the other extreme, where Christians, hipsters would, hey, it's cool to be green.
Oh, yeah.
And then indiscriminately drink the Kool-Aid the environmental agenda, and they're Christian, but they were all about stewardship, and so there was this weird polarization between redneck Randy and this other extreme
hipster Henry.
Yeah, I've got other stereotypes. I have other stereotypes named in the book, but you've got this spectrum, and then everything in between. And I thought, well, it's just time to have a nice, just lay out a biblical theology of sorts. I'm not a theologian, but just what does the Bible say about His creation, and hopefully the principles there would help people to see that the glories of creation and avoid some of these pitfalls on either extreme. And so that's what I wanted to do. I didn't like the heavy-handed governmental coercion. Yeah. I don't like that at all. I want the grassroots level change that, in a sort of a post-millennial way, where there's a grassroots movement where people are reconciled to the Father through the Son. And as Francis Schaeffer said in his book, his environmental book back in 1970, called Pollution and the Death of Man, he said, when people are reconciled to the Creator, then other dislocations are healed.
Right.
So we're reconciled to the Father, then we are reconciled to each other, and then we're reconciled to the creation. He says one quote of his, which I quote in the book. It sounds a bit, sentimental, but you have to put it in context. He says, "If I love the lover, I love what the lover has made."
Yeah.
And there you go.
So when we talk about, so God gave us the world, and He gave us it, and He wanted us to take dominion over it.
Right.
So practically, that means we should strip all the minerals out of the earth so we can take dominion over.
Well, as I said, when you look at the dominion, when you look at the dominion mandate in Genesis 1:28, it says that He said, "Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field." So if you just look at it in its strict sense, the dominion mandate is global wildlife management. Just there you go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be any kind of creature that God made. We're put in charge of that.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge responsibility. And I also sort of avoid the word stewardship. That's the big buzzword in Christian circles now.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily.
Is that or green?
It's it's stewardship. Stewardship.
Yeah.
It's like, and they tip a hat towards the green and say, we should be good stewards. But the Bible doesn't use that word, stewardship. Yeah, well, He does in other places, but He uses the word.
Not with regard to creation.
It's dominion. And I think good dominion or wise dominion is going to look a lot like good stewardship. But the difference between the two words is that stewardship does not imply ownership.
Right.
Dominion is sovereign rule.
Interesting.
Right. That's helpful.
And it's stronger. It's more potent. If your rich uncle gave you, his real fancy sports car, and not gave you, but loaned it to you for the summer, and said, take good care of it, change the oil, wash it, fill it up, premium, all of these things. You're stewarding his car because he owns it, and you're responsible for making sure that you return it to him in good shape. When God signed the title over to us in Genesis 1, it's like, okay, we can exercise, it's ours.
Yeah.
We can exercise dominion wisely or stupidly.
Okay.
And, I pull other biblical analogies just to unpack this notion of dominion, because there's a lot of negative baggage with that word. That's why we've gone with stewardship.
Right.
Because stewardship is a kinder, nicer
word,
gentler word. Right. And dominion just sounds exploitive and
aggressive,
kind of like what you were just saying.
Stripping the minerals out of the earth.
Right. And I think that we can develop and we can use natural resources, but as I don't know if there's you can say stewardship, but there's not a word dominionship. Maybe there's a word. Right. I haven't looked it up.
It is
but
now.
Yeah, make it happen, Gordon.
Dominionship.
Yeah.
Good dominionship is going to be circumspect when we take resources.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether it's renewable resources or non-renewable resources, we should use them because it talks about the Bible. There's going to be copper in the hills to dig out.
Yeah.
We need metals.
Yeah.
Right.
Metals are in the earth. But when we look at it holistically and say, okay, there's a lot of life that God has made, and at the end of the creation week, he said it was very good.
Right.
And that's my starting point.
Mosquitoes, though?
Yes. Really? Well, you're really opening a can of worms, or I should say,
I'm pushing you on it.
A can of mosquitoes. That in the unfallen state, everything was good.
Yeah.
Everything was very good. You say, well, okay, now that man has sinned, all sorts of things are bad. Therefore, we should, try to annihilate them. But I think, and I make this point in the book, is that a lot of things that we call pests are just in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong quantities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's often because of our bad dominion. We have gone in and often, without being ecologically circumspect, come in and done our thing. And then we go, whoa. And we didn't have any malice aforethought in trying to destroy.
Yeah.
Often we do what we want to do, whether we're entrepreneur or whatever, and there's no evil, I'm going to just destroy the environment and do all sorts of bad things. Right. But we do all sorts of bad things anyway, doing what we're, and we think, we're just absolved of any kind of responsibility because I wasn't meaning to hurt the environment. There's all sorts of people that just at a microcosm, like in their home, they're not necessarily trying to make a mess for their, the wife, why are you making tons more work for me? Because they're not trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
They're just being thoughtless. They're being careless. And we often do that with the world around us. We're thoughtless. We're careless. We come in, we destroy, and then we go, oh dear,
Yeah. So how bad of a situation are we in? So, I mean, the mass media says we've got to be off,
CO2.
Carbon. We got to have no cars by 2020 or 2030 or whatever.
No carbon emissions, off fossil fuels in 10 years, or it's too late.
Yeah, I talk about that climate change in my chapter in the part 3, which is problems and solutions.
Yeah.
And, the short answer is that when we are, first of all, there are certain greenhouse gases that are not necessarily healthy for the environment. But CO2 is a good gas, and it would have to be ridiculously high for it to be a problem. CO2 is plant food.
Right.
Okay. CO2 and water, and photosynthesis, the magic of photosynthesis, makes sugar, makes more plants. So you increase CO2, you actually increase plant production. And so I'm all for, as I say in the book, I'm all for cleaning up emissions. I mean, if we do combustion and we're cranking out greenhouse gases, and there are some hazardous things in those gases, we should clean them up. And the overarching principle is love your neighbor. Right. Love your neighbor, and but when there's that alarmism that says, okay, greenhouse gases warm the globe, well, they're not factoring in all sorts of things, like is it necessarily, yes, both sides of the argument say there's a little bit of warming, but is warming necessarily bad? Yeah. What they'll do is run computer models, which some scenarios will be bad, but they're sort of overlooking a lot of the good things that could come of it. And I don't want to go into all of that. Read the book, but there's good things in warming. The other thing is not clear is whether we're causing it, because there's all sorts of just like your house has a thermostat. There's if it goes if the temperature goes up, your furnace shuts off. Right. And it's called negative feedback. Right. Okay. And there's sort of at a global scale, there are feedback mechanisms that sort of, when things go up, like if you have increased CO2, then you're going to have more plant production, which is going to extract the CO2 out of the atmosphere. It's going to lower. So let's say you have a little bit of warming. Well, warming is going to warm up the water and cause more evaporation. Okay. Water, like globally. Yep. And so more evaporation has more condensation, more cloud cover, more solar reflectance, and a
temperatures can actually go down.
Temperature is that there's this moderating effect.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I'm not saying that there can't be.
Sure.
I'm not necessarily saying everything is wrong, but what I get very, very skeptical when there's this spittle-flecked hysteria that says it's just all bad, everything's going to heck in a handbasket, and we have to just stop it all now. Yeah. It's like they're not looking at both sides. Right. They're not listening to very, very good qualified climatologists that are saying, wait, you're exaggerating something the problem.
Like that girl that yells, create.
So
no, my turn.
Okay. You want to go?
Yeah, I want to talk about, you hit on something I thought was really important just a moment ago when you were talking about conservation and ownership. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I feel gets really lost in the conversation. So I'm just going to talk. You jump in here when you find something you want to latch onto. Okay.
Sure.
Because of my field, I get to go do a lot of videos for hunting folks. And so I get to watch them in their realm. And one of the people that they praise is Roosevelt because of what he did for conservation.
Right.
The more I dug into this, I started to notice that it was actually a socialistic idea that was creeping in, and that because of the act of public land.
The state was going to save all the animals and
the public land situation where the state owns the lands and they get to, and then we all own the lands because the state owns the lands. So it's basically socialism inside of conservation.
How much do the feds own of Idaho?
Right, exactly.
Like 60%.
60% of our lands, I think, are owned by the feds.
But one of the things that's really interesting about God's law and the mandate is that it's not given as a general application, but actually specific to individuals. How they manage their land, how they manage their individual
their sheep,
their dominion of what they have over it. You know, so I think that some of it is missed in the idea that if we give it over to, not saying we don't have a worldview to approach these things, but expecting the government to manage all of this or doesn't seem right either. So individual responsibility over what they own, it seems really important.
I don't want to get out over my skis on this.
Oh, too late.
But there is a biblical precedent for common lands. Okay. So
I can see gleaning on a personal land. I don't know how you see common.
There's common lands around the cities for the
city of refuge.
And
even just the cities.
The cities. There's common land.
Walled cities.
And there's all sorts of things that when you go all the way with private property, you run into water rights.
Yeah.
What about wildlife? You know, it's running across boundaries. And so if we slice and dice and get really, 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 now I'm with you. I think things should be more
a little bit.
Well,
the reason I want to challenge
I'm just saying that I own property, but do I own when deer walk across it?
Yeah,
I can if
I've got a hunting
if I've got a hunting license, I can shoot it.
Right.
But
I guess I'm appealing to the verse where if you find a dead body in the middle of a field and we don't know, it's the closest. We don't just say, well, this is open land. No, we say who's the closest city to the land, and then that person of that city makes the restitution for that and sacrifices in order to take care of it. So I don't know where I would find public land as being someone's responsible for the land. If no one owns the land, then,
what about the oceans, Mediterranean Sea?
Yeah. I can see, but there's borders.
There's commons.
Absolutely.
Air is common.
And there's even borders within that too. You have American water.
Right.
We have jurisdictions around that for a place. It's not just open to and we're all responsible in one sense for shared. I guess you can say a shared public space yet with borders.
But if a river is going through my land, and we might be going down a rabbit trail here, but if a river flowing through my land, do I get to, while it's passing through, pump it all out so that my downstream neighbor doesn't get any?
Yes.
No.
Can I?
Absolutely. You can cut everybody else off. No. I think that there is just like you. I think there is a place where it's like everybody is shared in one sense, but there's borders and boundaries within that shared particular space.
I'm okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I haven't looked. My book's not addressing a lot of these deeper private property issues. I'm all for private property, and I think that it would be better to say if a national park was given as a trust to a conservation group, and it's theirs.
So let's talk.
How about that?
That's you personalized it. So the water thing, real quick. One example.
How about giving?
Personalizing it's fantastic.
The federal government gives Yellowstone to the Nature Conservancy.
Yeah, so
as a trust.
Sure.
As a trust, as a national park.
You've personalized that, absolutely. The water thing, I want to make one point about the water thing. I was joking when I said yes, but what helps the water right issue is actually giving ownership to the people all the way down the river instead of the government saying it's ours, and then they put dams in wherever they want.
Well, and it's not loving your neighbor.
It's not loving your neighbor. So I'm just saying, I want to personalize that process as much as possible.
That's fine. But I'm out. I'm beyond my pay grade.
But what I really want to get at though is that if we don't have ownership of something, how can we say who's responsible for it?
You're appealing to the Dominion,
right?
Yeah, and the Dominion mandate would say, we're responsible, but who is responsible? And that's why, without getting into all of the particulars that you're bringing up, I just say, whatever sphere of influence you have, your own property, your own pet, your own garden, then exercise your dominion responsibilities in a way that glorifies God in your area, rather than say, well, I don't want to take out the garbage, but I want to save the world.
So, should Christians recycle? Come on.
Well, first of all, I talk about things in principle, and we need to do homework on what kind of recycling and whether or not that recycling is actually green. And it may depending on the infrastructure of a particular community, whether
it's actually efficient.
It's efficient, and whether it needs to ask yourself, does it need to be subsidized, or is someone able to make a business out of this? A legitimate living out of this without parasitizing the taxpayers to do it.
So that, and just to say again, repeating what you're saying, but if the government has to prop up an industry, then it's not efficient.
It's not efficient. It's
not actually productive. It's not actually producing something all on its own that's valuable to the community. That's the free market basically judging: is this helpful? Is this useful?
But we need to temper the free market with, if it's just free market, we can wait for negative consequences. Because if back in the days when westward expansion, and you had people that said, look at all these natural resources, and I'm going to go out and just, unrestrained greed for whatever. And you got a lot of people making a lot of money because they weren't thinking in terms of generational.
What are my grandkids going to get?
Yeah. What am I leaving them a smoking crater, or am I causing a big problem because I'm just raking in as much natural resources as I possibly can? and causing all sorts of untold damages. So we need to, nowadays, we've learned a lot from our lessons. We need to take stock of our global herds. You say, but I don't own the globe's herds as an individual. Right. Yeah, well, you own your own, okay, and take good care. You know, a righteous man has regard for the life of his beast. Right. If you're farming cattle or farming chickens, you need to think in terms of what can I do to make true dominion. And this is the analogy I use with the marriage analogy, is that husbands are head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. But if he's doing dominion well, she is going to thrive. She's going to become more beautiful. She's going to flourish. She's going to become more lovely. But we're thinking not in those terms. We're thinking dominion is, I can take what I want. God gave it to us, and I can just extract rather than cause things to flourish. Now,
interesting.
Yeah.
So you would say that the idea for that we should be thinking about as Christians for dominion is not necessarily extracting, which could be fine, but how can we make this
things
particular
better.
Item flourish and be better than what it was?
Yeah. And so the bigger the property you own, or the bigger industry you own, the more responsibility, the more homework you have to do. How can I beautify? And I may have mentioned this before. I don't know how much I had said on the last time I was on the show, but that when you think of the parable of the talents, they were given, this person was given 5, this person was given 2, and the guy with 5 earned 5 more. The guy with 2 earned 2 more, and the guy with 1 just buried it.
Right.
The one who got chewed out was the one that was doing sustainable management. Okay.
Yeah, buried his talent.
Yeah.
He buried his talent, and he gave back what he got. He didn't diminish it. So if he gets chewed out for diminishing it, how I would think, how much more should we?
Right. So
when we diminish. Now, certain things are non-renewables. When we extract, we can at least recycle a lot of those things and use them. And I think as there's almost a sort of a cultural sanctification as the gospel pervades, is that I'm not going to try to guilt trip some farmer who's doing what his granddad did, but as with how he's managing his land. I think from a cultural sanctification standpoint is that as we learn more about ecology, learn about agroecology, the more we'll start to implement things that will make the land be renewed, be better, rather than diminish. Mm-hmm. But we're usually thinking of maximizing profits. When we think of only maximizing profits, we think, well, let's break the Sabbath. Because if I'm open on Sunday, I can stay in the running.
But it turns out that that's actually not maximizing
it's
profits.
Not the maximum. So, if we do what God says, God blesses obedience. That's we're thinking, no, it's all about what I'm doing, and I'm going to maximize my profit margins by trying to extract as much as I can out of this thing that God has given me. And I think we need to think in terms of loving your neighbor. And if, say, you own an industry, do you only love your neighbor, and you're saying in quotation marks, my neighbor is my client? No, I think we should think past who's your neighbor.
All your neighbors.
It's not just your clients to give them a good product at a good price. You are wanting to love your neighbor who is downstream from your your mill, from your factory.
And it's your own children that you're going to hand the business off to. Yeah. And if you're doing strip mining in terms of whatever your business is, just grabbing maximum profit right now, you're not actually setting your business up to thrive long term. So you're not even loving your own children who are going to inherit your business.
Right.
It's just bad business.
Yeah. You want people a generation or two from you looking back and going, this guy was really taking care of his property. He was thinking generationally. He was thinking of how to beautify his land while giving.
I really love that contrast between dominion and just preservation. Yeah. It's not just about preservation.
Yeah.
It's about, preserving the good things, but then actually taking
enhancing
them, glorifying them. And you see that in the creation week itself in Genesis 1. God creates things, and then he comes back the next day and he breaks them apart and he makes them better.
Yeah. Right.
And then he says, all right, now it's your turn. See the animals, see the fish, see the birds, and start practicing this.
And one other thing is sometimes we think, okay, dominion has to mean domestication. But I think that if you read your Bible, you'll see that God extols all sorts of wild creatures.
Yeah.
And
the behemoth,
Leviathan. And, read Psalm 104 several times. You'll see that God glories in the wild beasts. And there doesn't seem to be any intention of these are things that need to be domesticated.
Right.
That's their appeal.
Right.
That they're not domesticated and they're not.
Some of them taking dominion. Some of them means just watch. Maybe there's places where you have to kind of hem them in a little bit, but otherwise you just let them be.
Let them be,
because that's what they were made to be.
Exactly.
One thing too I'm thinking about as you're talking, every eschatology has a fallout, and I think that the eschatology that's been run in America, which is really dispensationalism for the most part, has led us to feel this way about the earth, that it's just going to all burn to hell in a handbasket.
Well, it's basically the lefty version of that in environmentalism.
Absolutely.
5 more years and we're out of oil. 5 more years.
That's exactly right.
And LA fell into the ocean. 5 more years.
Use it up now.
And it's all over and it's too late. It's like, this is just Hal Lindsey.
Yeah.
On the left.
I think a post-millennial understanding of this is like you develop it, you make it beautiful for the next generation so they can continue to portray and display the glory of God in the land as well.
For generations. It's almost like this whole universe had a maker.
Yeah, imagine that.
It's almost like it was designed.
We're often keen to fix on certain things that will give us dividends, like certain crop plants, we'll keep those around. But God had Noah build an ark that took on board all sorts of things that Noah was scratching his head, like, how am I going to use that?
Right.
How am I going to make fish? Do you like to fish?
Yes.
Okay. Well, fish actually eat a lot of mosquitoes.
I use my hands. I'm bare handed.
Yeah, I think there were probably more than 2 mosquitoes on the ark.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about snakes, but I do want to ask you if there was one thing that somebody could walk with, that you wanted somebody to walk away with after they read this book, what would that be?
Oh man,
just one.
Love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Love God and love your neighbor. Love is creation.
Yeah.
Is that one?
That was like 3 in 1.
That summarizes.
It's like Trinitarian.
That's what Jesus did.
That summarizes the book.
That's what Jesus
love
did.
God, love your neighbor. There we go. Love God, love your neighbor, and love the creation.
There you go.
A Different Shade of Green, a biblical approach to environmentalism and the Dominion Mandate by Dr. Gordon Wilson. Foreword by his nephew, Indy Wilson. That's cheating. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
We're talking about snakes?
No, not talking about snakes. Snakes is horrible. I don't like snakes.